Hi, everyone. Map of the old city. That's exactly what the city looks nowadays, ever since the Ottoman period, the which ended with the end of the First World War, and that marked the beginning of the British Mandate of the Holy Land. What is important to remember that the walls we see nowadays are not the same walls that were there uh, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, in times of Jesus, the times of the Byzantine and the Mamluks and the Crusaders. The walls they look nowadays. This is the 1530s, right? So this is the Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottoman Empire, and they built the walls of the old city, obviously not from scratch and not from the new construction material. So the walls themselves can tell you a lot of stories. You can easily, at least approximately, date the stones and sort of approximately tell who was in charge of the construction of this particular section of the wall. It's tricky sometimes, but nevertheless, it is possible. And obviously, it's not the same city that Jesus walked. However, today we are going to explore an area which is, I would say, quite likely to have been one of the very important episodes of Jesus in Jerusalem. Okay, so let's have a very quick overview, and we'll start the tour where we stopped last time. So we started by the Jaffa Gate, and that's the Jaffa Gate. Jaffa is called so because the road that takes you to this gate actually started in Jaffa port, the only way the pilgrims, Christian pilgrims, travelers, merchants, Jews could access the Holy Land, and that was the only way to Jerusalem for a long time from Jaffa. This new gate is a very new one. That's true. That's the newest gate, end of the 1800s. It was made here. It was made uh, during the reign of Abdul Hamid II, Sultan Abdul Hamid II, and they were made because the Christian communities that started to settle around the old city needed a quicker access to the old city, and they got it because the Ottomans relied on the support of Christian communities and the pilgrimage. Damascus Gate, which is an opulent one, probably the most beautiful one. Well, it is for sure the most beautiful one. And this is the gate that has multiple names, just like any gate in Jerusalem. There will be three names with regards to the three narratives and three languages. So Damascus Gate in English, because Paul, on his way to Damascus, had a vision, and that's when he realized the power of Jesus, and well, you know the story, and he became Paul. He was Saul and he became Paul, and one of the most loyal followers of Christ. Then it's called Shar Shechem in Hebrew. So in the Jewish narrative, that's the Nablus or Shechem is one of the important cities currently in the West Bank, and there are some important sites there, such as the grave of Joseph. And also it's called the Bab al-Amud in Arabic. It's called so because long time ago in the Roman times, in the second century, Jerusalem was rebuilt significantly, completely rebuilt by the Romans, and there used to be standing a pillar, most probably a monument to Emperor Hadrian, who was in charge of the big revamping of Jerusalem. So we know that the traces of that Amud, that pillar, can be found still within the gates in the small museum over there. Another gate that is, and we are now already walking in the northern side, right? So this is the northern side of the northern wall of the old city, Herod's Gate or Flowers Gate. in Hebrew, it's called Shar Prachim. Or also the gates of the resurrection. That's the name in Arabic. We spoke about it. It's not really clear why it's called Flowers Gate, Herod's Gate, because according to the old tradition, 19th century tradition, which is not entirely true. Well, we'll talk about it today. It's not clear, I would say. It is believed that Herod it used to be believed that Herod had his temple, palace, or not temple, his palace, from the north eastern side of the old city. But we will actually see his palace. So, but that's the 19th century tradition that was brought by Christians because, well, that's the Christian narrative here. And yeah, there used to be a Muslim cemetery, indeed, outside the walls, but the cemetery is not there anymore. But the cemetery is basically around the corner. And yes, outside of the walls of the old city, there wasn't really much built before mid 19th century. And after that, a lot changed in the city. The next gate is the Lion's Gate, and you can easily see the four lions here. They look like cats to me, like Siberian cats, but it doesn't matter. It's okay. So whatever feline you can see is already okay. And this is the gate that was kind of, I would say, groundbreaking for Suleiman the Magnificent. He had a dream. When he just conquered the Holy Land and Jerusalem, he wasn't sure whether he would go with the walls, but then he had a dream in which he was attacked by lions. So he woke up and decided to build the walls to protect himself from the lions, and the lions were there for extra protection. In Christian narrative, St. Stephen's Gate, the same gate is called St. Stephen's Gate because it is believed, according to Christian tradition, that Saint Stephen was stoned to death here, which made him the first martyr in Christianity. We're talking here the 5th or 6th century, well, 5th century, early 6th century Common Era. There's obviously no proof of that. It's impossible to prove it, but what we can do is just trace that tradition. And this is already the eastern side of the old city. If you remember, the eastern side of the old city is also the side of the Temple Mount itself. And we are looking at the eastern gate, quite logically, or the Gate of Mercy, or the Golden Gate. I remind you that this is the gate from the 1500s, that's 16th century, 1530s. That's when it was finished. But the actual gate of the actual Temple Mount gate are underground. There haven't been obviously the extensive excavations in this area, but some research, well, a lot of researches has been carried out, and there have been found remains of the first temple period structure, of the second temple period structure. First temple, again, speaking on the timeline, this is ever since 950 BCE up until 586 BCE. That's when the first temple was destroyed, and then let's say 530 BC up until 70 AD. That's the second temple period until the Romans would destroy the second temple. That's what we're talking here. That's a timeline, just in case you forgot. We're not talking about the narrative here. We're talking here now, just going back to we're switching to another gate. The recordings of all the previous tours are available for my sponsors. The last week tour is still available for everyone on my YouTube channel. And since this week I was a little bit late with the recordings, I'm going to leave the recordings for a little longer for everyone, for more of you to catch up on what you missed. We move on, and there's, well, that's the Golden Gate. It's sealed, and it has been sealed and uncovered and opened several times throughout the history. But last time it was sealed by the Ottomans. Yes. Another gate, the Dung Gate. It's called so because this is exactly that's where all the waste from the old city was taken out. That's also the area where the tanneries used to be, and some, I would say, other very smelly businesses. And it's quite natural that this gate was used for these purposes because this is, by the way, so the terrain in Jerusalem goes like this, from north to south, and the southern side is actually the lowest, so it's easier to carry all the weights out of the city this way. So that's just, and it will be like this It's like this in English and in Hebrew, so the Dung Gate, the gate or the Waist Gate. But in Arabic, there is also another gate, the Maghrabi Gate, because of the Maghrabi neighborhood that originated there in the 12th century. So the inhabitants of well from the northern Africa, and this neighborhood was in a fell into disrepair up to the 1948 war, and up to Jerusalem was occupied by Jordanians, the entire old city, and only 20 years later it was liberated, and it was decided to tear down the what was left of the neighborhood and prepare this area for the Western Wall Plaza, and well called Kotel in Hebrew, and that's how you can access the Western Wall nowadays. This is kind of a bonus gate, the Tanner's Gate. It was discovered in the 60s and 70s, and it was sealed. It was sealed during the Ottoman time. It is believed that there actually had been the gate probably around the Crusader period, but the Ottomans did not follow the outline, didn't follow the layout of Ottomans, obviously. Well, they followed some of it, but not entirely. So altogether, we can say that the Ottomans built 46 towers and 8 gates that we have. But the new one was made much, much later, so in the end of the Ottoman period. This is the Zion Gate. We already discussed it last time. This is the, I would say, universal name in the 2 languages, the Gate of Zion. However, well, we know all of Mount Zion, and this word Zionism, right, that is again used in a very corrupted sense. So Zion is the Mount Zion. It's I would say more of a tradition. Mount Zion, it has to be probably the city of David, right? That's where exactly the first Jewish settlement was established, right? The city of David. We had a bunch of tours there. But with regards to the current Mount Zion, this is the Christian tradition, the Crusader tradition, ever since 1099, when the Crusaders came to Jerusalem, and they called that mount that the mount just next to the old city. They called it Mount Zion because obviously they couldn't find, there was no evidence of any city of David, and they were just looking for a mount. That was it. So Mount Zion is, I would say, universal name, but there are also other names such as, let's say, the David's Gate in English. In Hebrew, you can also come across such a name, or Navi Daoud, the gate of the prophet David. That's because in this area is located the tomb of King David, which is an important holy site for all of the 3 religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So that's why I would say the Zion Gate has this multiple names, and you can see the traces of lots of holes and some marks, some scratches. This is the damage from the 1948 war and multiple attempts of Israel Defense Force of Israeli Army to break through the Jordanian blockade, but it was all in vain for 20 years. My tours are not focused on, I would say, politics. For this particular reason, I have, the tours on geopolitics, and the recordings are available. I should probably do another one, but I'm so done with it for a moment. So I'd rather just stick to history and learn from history rather than manipulate facts. But the important thing is that the Zion Gate is not even the ancient gate. So there had been a gate in this, but not in this area. This is the Ottoman time gate. The actual gate was a little bit prior to that. It's we know that because of let's say, because of the terrain and because of some of the archaeology, but that was it. What we see Also from that area we can see Mount Zion. We can access some really great sites such as the Dormition Abbey, such as the cenacle, the room of Last Supper, the tomb of King David, and many other sites. We passed by this gate on multiple tours when we dealt with story of Jesus in Jerusalem. This gate is probably the best illustration of well, see how the gates used to be built back then. And the Ottomans were not the first ones. So the Crusaders were among the first to come up with this idea. So the gates, the entrance to the gate would never be just direct, right? It would be always from a side, and then you have to turn. So big armies cannot really break through the wall. No battling rams can break through the wall. Uh, well, you can see the name in the three languages. There's three different narratives. There you go. And the Zion Gate, well, it's the Zion Gate and Jaffa Gate. They're the two gates that take you. If you need to get to a Christian quarter or Armenian quarter, use these two gates. So I would say mostly Armenian quarter, that would be the Zion Gate. From here, you can also access the Jewish quarter and the Temple Mount. That's the monument to the events of the 1948 and the subsequent 20 years. It doesn't mean that you only need to get this, you only need to enter the city through this particular gate. If you want to, let's say, go to Armenian Quarter, it's only it will be only the Zion Gate. No, you can access the old city from any gate. There are restrictions with regard to the Temple Mount. Yes, that is true. But other than that, you can use any gate. But obviously, I highly recommend to just check the Google Maps and maybe ask people and follow the signs in the streets, because it's so easy to get lost in this tiny old city. But it's very easy to get lost in, especially if you're visiting for the first time. Even for the second time, it's still not easy. But I would say that Zion Gate is quite easy to access, and it's quite easy to navigate there because it's almost directly takes you to either the Armenian quarter or the Jewish quarter. And since, well, talking about Armenians, this convent I have never visited myself. We talked about it on one of the tours as I would say one of the possible sites. There are multiple traditions, and it's very common that in the Holy Land we may have two places of um, entombment of Jesus. Let's say we have two places of where certain things happen, or sometimes even three versions. It's totally okay. So according to some scholars, this could be the place where some of the high priests could be living, because we are technically not really far from the Temple Mount. But it's just a tradition. Again, it's, I would say, more of even a speculation. So it's not really, I would say, proven. That sometimes it's not so easy to prove such things. So another watchtower built by the Ottomans, one of the 46 of them. Most of them have no names, but some used to have some names, mostly the names that kind of survived from the previous times, and we will talk about it. This is interesting. Most of the time, actually, I would say this video was filmed like 2 years ago or so. So this is before that, I would just pass by this and we just wouldn't really pay any attention to this kind of a hole hollowing in the wall. These are the traces of the attempts of Israel Defense Force to break through the Jordanian blockade to penetrate the city from here. They tried to dig under, but that didn't work. So. Okay. И остаешься дома, да? Марк ушел? А, окей. Мгм. Sorry. So we move on. And now I want to take you to a special place. We're actually now going to be, I don't think I've ever really taken you to this site. So I'm quite excited. We are now on our way to the Jaffa Gate, basically to complete the circle. And we are exactly at the corner of the southern and western wall. These are the donors that helped, uh, I would say, prepare this area, turn it into sort of a park. Um, and this is, in fact, the park. It's not the theme park. I would say it's the archaeological park. So where are we? Let's have a look at the map once again. The Zion Gate. So you see Armenian Quarter, the Jewish Quarter. So it's very easy. It's a very good access point if you want to get to these areas. But again, not necessarily. You can easily enter through Damascus Gate and directly it will take you to, well, not, I would say, okay, you will have to be turning here and there, but you can access the this area through even Damascus Gate. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it just saves you time, and that's exactly where we are now at the corner. So here we are, the southwestern corner of the not of the Temple Mount, no, but of the old city of Jerusalem. And we are now on our way to the Jaffa Gate, and there's quite a lot to see there. I suggest having the Q&A in the end. I think so. I just want to make sure I show you as much as possible, and I don't really want to overrun. So let's do that. I hope you're okay with it. And as I said, there is a sort of a park. It's kind of archaeological park. There's a lot of archaeology. Most excavations, the most recent excavations and the most, I would say, groundbreaking excavations took place in the 70s. Unfortunately, however, the results that have not been published yet because the findings have not really been processed yet. I would like to share with you this uh, photo. This is a photo, I would say from maybe 4 years ago. It's not my photo. And this gives you kind of a very good idea of how tiny the old city is, but actually how much there is to see in the old city as well. Like there you go. That's the Jaffa Gate over there. So it goes like this, the Temple Mount, and yeah, that's basically it. There you go. There you go. That's it. But look how much it has. So that's why I wasn't really joking saying that it's so easy to get lost in Jerusalem. And that's where we are now. Again, this is from about 4 or 5 years ago. I found it just online. This doesn't look the same way. There are a few things that don't look the same way, for sure, but we will get to that. This is just for you to understand where we are, and we'll be going along the road, but there is a pedestrian zone there, so it's not an issue at all. But it might get loud. But the findings there will definitely make your journey from the corner to Jaffa Gate quite memorable. So what we have here is, well, an interesting story. So remember those excavations that were carried out? It was, again, the excavations done by the Israeli and American archaeologists. It's a common case to have international groups of archaeologists just to avoid, I would say, bias and I would say provide a critical view over the work. So the excavations here discovered quite an interesting thing. So as you see now, we are approaching some sort of like an entrance point, like an entry point, right? It looks like a gate, and it even has steps. So again, this is just a version. This hasn't been, I would say, accepted by the entire archaeologist community, scholars community, but this place is now also claimed as a possible place of the Gabbatha, elevated space. right? As it is mentioned in Gospel of John. That's the well, and it is believed to have been the place where Jesus was judged by Pontius Pilate or Praetorium. So let's just see what John is saying, John 19. When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat at a place known as the stone pavement. And so we know of another possible location, which is, I would say, accepted by the majority of the scholars and historians as the place of judgment. And it's not one and the same place. Let's try to see what's going on here. Let's just take it one step at a time. First of all, you see there are clearly all of this was underground, all of it. It was discovered like 50 years ago. It was all uncovered. There was a massive construction site. I mean, it was a massive excavation site. It looked like a construction site, but it was not. See what I'm talking about? The big cars, big trucks carrying thousands of kilograms of soil and absolutely precious um, archaeology. This is how it was. And it was massive. And the findings have not even been processed yet. So there is so much more to see. And have a look over here. So let me just explain how much work has been done. Do you see that? Let's say here the stones are much wider, right? Can you see that? There's clearly some sort of a pattern, like a line. So the ground level was there. You see, there was, can you see that? There was soil. It was the ground level over there. That was it. So all that was uncovered in the 70s and, 80s. And they found all these remains. So they found the stone constructions, they found the steps, they found, you see, all that, a little bit of here, a little bit of there, right? All of it was discovered. They even found old paving. And we are now approaching the Jaffa Gate. And by the Jaffa Gate, okay, and by the Jaffa Gate is a very important site, the Palace of Herod the Great. So we also know that Pontius Pilate, by that time, Herod had already passed away. Obviously, Pontius Pilate was appointed as a general to rule over Judea. Pontius Pilate did not live in Jerusalem. Pontius Pilate lived in Caesarea. And even in Caesarea, there was even found an inscription with the name place of Pontius Pilate. That was the groundbreaking discovery because before that there hadn't been a single evidence of Pontius Pilate's existence. And then there was found that. So Pontius Pilate did exist, and he only came to Jerusalem for important visits. And Passover was a very important period. So obviously he had to be there to observe what was going on. And there are two places where Pontius Pilate could have been overlooking the city and just taking care of the law and order. It could have been either Herod's palace, and it is I would say it is quite obvious from the books of Josephus, a historian from the first century, that indeed Pontius Pilate used the property of Herod in Jerusalem. But it's just it's quite logical that he had been using it, but it wasn't said, I, Pontius Pilate, or he, Pontius Pilate, used Herod's palace. So let's just see what we've got here. The king's palace was a structure of a great magnificence. That's about Herod's palace. It was enclosed with a wall 30 cubits high. It had towers named Hippicus, Fassel, and Mariamne. named after the family members of Herod. Within this wall, we had built two very large and beautiful buildings adorned with all kinds of decorations. Each was surrounded with many open courts, and one after another, there are also groves of trees, long walkways, and deep canals full of bronze fountains. The rooms were decorated with gold and multicolored marble. That's very much Herod style, and it was found. There you go. And that's exactly where we are. So that definitely must have been the place of Herod's palace. So there's no doubt about that. However, that's where we are. Again, this is the old footage, but what we need to understand that this also must have, well, this is Herod's palace, and this must have been all Herod's palace, but it just hadn't been excavated to that point. And there you go. So that's where we are, right? The towers over there. So the three towers, they're still standing. That's Herod's palace. Okay, this all had been Herod's palace. This is the Temple Mount. So the original idea, the original place of where Pontius Pilate could have been, and it is marked by the tradition called Via Dolorosa, is the Antonia Fortress. It was another fortress built by Herod the Great. It was built for Mark Antony, for the emperor that Herod started with. And it was named after Antonius, right? Herod liked to name his real estate after the Caesars, Caesarea, and Antonia. So it was quite typical of him. And this is let's remember the tradition. So Via Dolorosa, right? The 14 stations that are marked with the first station where Jesus was held for trial and judged by Pontius Pilate. So it is believed that most scholars believe that that's where it happened, by the Temple Mount, because the Temple Mount was the key location, was the key site for all the Jews. So Passover was a big pilgrimage, and Jews from all over the world would be coming to the Temple Mount. So it made sense for Pontius Pilate to actually overlook the Temple Mount, which was also built. The Antonia Fortress was also built by Herod. So there is no indication whether Pontius Pilate used Antonia Fortress or Herod's palace. There are two very different sites. And that's why, since there is no indication which place it was, which of the two, now there are two traditions. So it's either there or here. Again, this is also the old footage. This is the old photo. It looks different. We'll talk about it. Let's come closer and see what we've got. So we have the steps. We have the steps here. It's definitely as early as the Second Temple period. We have the gate that had been found. So those are the steps that will be taking you to the gate, the so-called hidden gate. The gate does not exist anymore because the current walls are from the 16th century, right? 1500s, and they were built on top of it. All that had been underground. So the hidden gate. There was even found a paving, because we know that the streets of Jerusalem were paved at times of Jesus, but this pavement is all underground. Since Jerusalem was destroyed in year 70 AD and rebuilt into a Roman pagan city, there was nothing now in the surface that reminds us of those times. To see the pavement and walk the streets of Jesus, you need to go underground. And we have done it so many times with you, so you know it very well by now. Let's move on. So I'm trying not to hurry too much. So the descriptions of Josephus, the historian, they match. So we know there's no doubt there is a Herod's palace. That's true. We'll talk about it. And there is no well, there's no doubt that there was also an Antonia fortress, but which of the places, which was the praetorium, right? Which was the place where Pontius Pilate resided and where the judgment was done? No idea. We don't know. So there are two sites now. There is also an elevated space. So the Lithostratus is called in the Gospels. The paved street is called Lithostratus, and the elevation, well, kind of the elevation is called Gabbatha in Aramaic. That is it. That's what we have. So if Via Dolorosa is wrong, then, well, if that site is identified as, well, that Antonia Fortress is not the right site, then Via Dolorosa is wrong. If Via Dolorosa is wrong, then, well, the entire tradition just falls into, well, the entire theory, the concept is just not really valid anymore. And Via Dolorosa has to be rethinked, right? And turned, I would say, not to completely upside down, but significantly divert from the old itinerary, from the old route. Which is, well, Via Dolorosa is still is a tradition from the Crusader times. So we know how many times Crusaders were wrong. We know how many times Crusaders also invented things. They even invented Stations of the Cross. There are several stations that even are not mentioned in the New Testament at all, and not even mentioned in the in any of the Gospels. So we wouldn't be surprised here. So that's what we're talking here about. We see some elevation here. Well, some paving. Who knows, right? And it also looks like, so this is already within the chambers, within, like, this is already the territory of the palace, of Herod's palace. And there was even found the bema. So this is believed to have been the seat of, well, if we stick to this theory, and I don't support this theory, I'm just saying you how things are, right? So this is already the territory within the palace of Herod, and there were steps there, and we know that, well, there would always be a bema, like an elevation, right, on which the judge would be sitting, well, Pontius Pilate would be sitting in this context. This stone was found here. When I was there, the stone wasn't there. This is it already collapsed, but the stone was found, quite of a regular shape, I would say. Well, I mean, quite of a round shape. So that definitely was intended to be of this shape. So who knows? And the stone is just lying there. Well, it was lying there 2 years ago. I'm not sure where it is nowadays. Remember that. Let's go back quickly. You see this area? This is the ground level. This is the ground level. You see what I'm talking about? This is the ground level. Well, and all of that used to be Herod's palace. How do we know that? We know it because of the excavations that were carried out about 2 years ago. And the entire place was turned into a parking lot. And in that parking lot, they discovered mosaic floors from times of Herod the Great. So all that gigantic territory from the corner of the southwestern wall to the Jaffa gate, it was Herod's palace. And it worked. So everything, putting everything together, it checks out. Is there any proof? I mean, has it been supported by the entire community? Not really, not yet. But there is still a lot more to process before it will be published, and before there will be any, I would say, a worthwhile discussion. Let's see this this illustration. I found it online, and I think it's one of the very good ones. So this is where we are. That's Herod's palace, right? That's Herod's palace. Over here, this is the Temple Mount, right? And the Antonia fortress built very close. Um, so now the modern day Via Dolorosa, the traditional Via Dolorosa, it starts here and goes all the way like this. And we know the story. The other version, the Herod's Palace being the praetorium place of judgment, that's here. And then the Dolorosa should go this way and still end up in the Holy Sepulchre Church anyway. So it's basically just, I would say, significantly diverting from the current tradition. Nevertheless, we move on. So these are just a lot of illustrations, obviously, of the judgment of Jesus. That's the place where the current tradition of from the Crusader times. That's at the home arch. That's it is believed to have been placed on top of what used to be Antonia Fortress, and the entire archaeology with the steps, with the Gabbatha, with the lithostratus, with the pavement, is underground. And we visited it. We visited it we went to the basement of the convent of the Sisters of Zion. Well, again, nothing on the surface. Everything is underground, very deep underground. Anyway, so that's what I promised to share with you. It's taken me a little longer than I expected to go over it, but I believe it was important to take you back to Via Dolorosa and to remind you of the current tradition, the one that we talked about before. But we carry on. Now we are again passing by another tower built at the times of the Ottomans, and it stands on top of the bedrock, which is also important. We know there's nothing more there because there is a bedrock. And I like this very much because these explications really just hit you in the face. Look, you are looking at, you can actually scan, you can read the wall, and that's exactly the story here. That ever since the First Temple period, you can see the layers in the walls now. That so many layers of soil and waste were removed. You can see that. Not so easy to date, but nevertheless. So you can see the First Temple period, you can see the years, right? So this is up until the Second Temple period, the Roman period, and we move on, move on, move on. That's how it works. That's exactly how it works. Also, you can see this, have a look at I would say the timeline once again, once again, once again. So let's go on. We are now approaching the Jaffa Gate. It's already around the corner over there. There is more archaeology here, however, so we're not just there by the gate, because I want to show you the tombs from the First Temple period. That is from 3 to 2,500 years ago. The tomb complex. The tombs would always be located, obviously, would always be located outside of the city for a number of reasons, for also sanitary reasons and purity reasons. They are sealed now. There is no access to them, but they have been very, very, I would say, extensively explored and excavated. There are no bodies there anymore, as you know, so they're just empty tombs, and that's it. And they look exactly the way the tombs from the First Temple period would look like. Just that. That's what it looks like. They look really comfy to me. And this area is always, well, the grass there is so lush. It's like a carpet, and it's always so wet. Yeah, so it's quite soggy but soft. Well, it's a nice place. There's always some wind there. So I like that. That's my favorite section. And now we are passing by Herod's Palace. This is the photo from the internet as well. So as I said, about this is like 2 years ago when it was filmed, around that time, and this is what it looks nowadays. So this tower here is now this tower is towering over Jerusalem, and that's it's very hard to imagine the place without it. So we are here by the Jaffa Gate, and this is all of a sudden, why isn't it the Herod's Tower? So I was thinking how to name it, but I thought, okay, if I say it's the Herod Tower because it's Herod's palace, right? You would have had I said it's Herod's Tower, you would have understood because I was just talking about Herod, but it's not actually called Herod's Tower, right? I mean, what is Herod's palace? Why isn't it Herod's Tower? Why on earth is it David's Tower? I'm sorry, but it's David's Tower. Because when Crusaders came, they thought that they identified this place as the Palace of King David. That's the place where David resided. So they named the tower David's Tower. And it has been called like that for thousands of years. That's it. For 1,000 years, it's been called like that. Just this. By the way, the road we are walking now did not exist here in the Ottoman period. It only appeared here in the end of the Ottoman period. Remember that Jaffa Gate has a big gap. That's because for the visit of Kaiser Wilhelm II in the end of the 1880s, it was decided to, well, so the Kaiser wouldn't have to get off his horse and walk on foot and go on foot in the old city. The Ottomans decided to take down part of the wall, and also they built the road. And we are now walking down the road built for Kaiser Wilhelm II. And the wall to the right hand side is the wall of the Herod's Palace or the Tower of David Museum, which opened about also which opened well, approximately the same time. So I don't remember even when exactly, like year and a half, 2 years, I think, around that. So the video is about 2 to 3 years old. Well, that's the timeline. Well, again, the old city, the Jaffa Gate, you see the gaps of the Jaffa Gate. You would be taking, if you, well, again, you can go to all the four quarters, but it makes sense to go if you want to Christian quarter, Armenian quarter, or if you came with a train from Itzhak Navon station by the Jaffa Road. So, and if you did some shopping in the Mamila shopping center, then yeah, so definitely that's how you would be entering Jerusalem Old City with the Jaffa Gate. So yeah, we're destined to overrun by, oh goodness gracious, 7 minutes. That's definitely all 10 minutes. Anyway, let's go on. Sorry for that, but I needed some extra time for the explanations. You know already that the way the Jaffa Gate looks now is not the same as it looked back then. It used to have a tower built during the end of the 1800s. But it was built to commemorate the anniversary of Sultan Abdul Hamid II, and they were built about hundreds of them across the empire, Ottoman Empire. This watchtower would be teared down by the British. Well, I like this photo. This is somewhat 1930s, the Zeppelin hovering over the Tower of David. So yeah, Herod's Palace and Tower of David. That's just the name of it. And also, right now in this area, there is the road and Mamila shopping center down there. But there used to be a coffee shop, the Arabs coffee shop, which used to be very good. And everyone who was on the way, who came all the way from Jaffa, well, people would be tired. The road was absolutely exhausting. So that Arab coffee shop was an oasis. That's basically what it was. So let's move on. And oh, I like this photo. I found it on one of the archives that I'm quite frequent. So this is like 1990, 1992, snow in Jerusalem. And I think this is just the perfect image. I love it very much. I love it. So has nothing to do actually with the tour, but that's what you can see to the right hand side as you are now about to enter the Jaffa Gate. So again, this wasn't like that from the beginning, but this picture is taken clearly after 1890, and up clearly because well, you can see this well, the Sabil is here. The Sabil or the fountain. This is the tradition in the Muslim world, right? So this is kind of a drinking fountain that you can find, and this is the way you enter through the walls to the city, and look at that. So in that photo, there was no tower. Here, which is there is still the tower. So the tower was torn down in the 1924, 1925. So now we can date it even better. So this is clearly before that, and that photo was taken already after the watchtower was torn down. Yeah. So this is how you can date it easily. Now you see all the Ottoman signs from that from the watchtower, and the watchtower is gone. There are no Ottoman sites, nothing like that. You enter the city, and to the left-hand side, the Christian quarter begins. To the well, the easiest way would be you could go right to the Armenian quarter, and that's probably one of the quickest ways to Zion Gate to the right, and also that's the road to the Jewish Gate. Sorry, not to the Jewish Gate, to the Jewish quarter, or you could go just straight ahead, and it will quickly take you to Via Dolorosa and a lot more, and the Muslim quarter as well. So this is the view from the other side, right from the inside the city. No gates, a moat. What is that? And these buildings are not here anymore because they were torn down, obviously. Wow, a moat? What is that? How come? Well, this is General Allenby. Unlike William II, General Allenby, when he entered the city after the well in 1917, he entered the city on foot because he wanted to show respect to the old city of Jerusalem. He said that Jesus walked the city on foot, and he did the same. So people liked it. People liked it. What is this moat? What is going on here? Well, this was built as one of the first five-star hotels in the old city in Jerusalem, like the Grand Hotel, the Imperial Hotel. So the buildings that you saw in the pictures, they were not there. They're not there anymore. So these ones were built, and there are actually so many photos of this area that you can actually say at which point which building was constructed. And I was so happy that I was able to film it as the Ishtalmud went. So actually, I have like tons of also audios, and at some point I maybe should also share that. There's so many stories, but it just cannot really fit everything into one tour. So we were standing there and filming it, and we were told that during the Ottoman period, so this mode had always been there, but during the Ottoman period, there was a market here. So there were traders here. There was, well, they would be selling goods, and this area was walkable. So the moat was walkable. Well, and Herod's not a fortress. Well, Herod's palace was not accessible, but the moat was. This is a very, very old photo, a very old one. This building is not here anymore. So this is one of the entrances right to Herod's palace. We move on. And as you see, you can walk all the way like this. And it's totally fine that there is a moat there. The moat was there for extra protection of Herod. Herod had a lot of trust issues, a lot of safety issues, so he wanted his palaces to be totally inaccessible. And well, you see, the same moat, the trade. That's already a later period. So these buildings are the modern ones, so to speak. So to speak, this is already late Ottoman period. It's kind of a postcard, and well, the postcard manufacture from Ottoman Palestine and then mandatory Palestine was massive. The tourism started thanks to the pilgrims to the Holy Land and Thomas Cook Company. That was exactly there at the right time and the right place. So yeah, they were the leaders for sure in bringing pilgrims to the Holy Land. Then we spent about 60 minutes, I think, standing just in one corner. And I have a 60-minute video here just watching this gate, this entrance to the fortress, to Herod's palace or fortress. It is a fortress anyway. Obviously, I'm going to spare you from that, so it's just just a screenshot. But yeah, so the entire hour we were just standing there talking about how the gate worked, how the security took care of everyone. I mean, well, how inaccessible Herod's palace was. We spoke about it, it was guarded and everything. Yeah, 60 minutes just in one place. So you just can imagine how much footage I have and how gentle I am being with you. So here to the right hand side, if you go like that, you go through the big market street. You go past the Christian Quarter, and then you also easily access Via Dolorosa and everything. Or yeah, you could go back, and that's exactly what we're doing now. We are going back uh, to Jaffa Gate, and that's where we are. There is also some archaeology there, but I'm going to spare you from this time. So we'll talk about it probably when I take you from Jaffa Gate to Via Dolorosa. We'll see, but there is also some archaeology here and there, and that's the road we took on our way to the next gate, and we saw that already with you. The new gate would be over there around the corner. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope I haven't confused you even more, but I know how confusing Jerusalem is. So there you go. Let me know if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'm going to send you the links once again. So this has been the final episode on the old city of Jerusalem, walls and gates. The next episode, next Sunday, same time. I'm trying to be consistent and I'm trying to make things easier for you so you don't have to the time zones and everything. So we are. Oh, a second. Okay, yeah, very good. So these are the links for the two live streams I did earlier today in Batumi. Also, some links for the upcoming weekend, and yes, the links for Jerusalem tour is here, as well as the links to my website. Yes, this is the final tour for today. This is it. We're done, and thank you so much for everything. Thank you for joining my tours, be it a sunset tour or a fun or thank you for joining me for a glass of wine earlier today. Thank you for watching some Soviet movies with me and my husband. That's always it's always nice to do it with you. Thank you so much for everything. The tours of the Holy Land always feel so rushed to me. There is a lot to talk about for sure. The Rampart walk is going to be more relaxed for sure, but yeah, this it will be packed. It's not rushed. It's packed. It's just packed with information, and I didn't want to turn it into a Santa Barbara series, if you know what I mean. Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. So the recordings of the past weekend you can still find on my YouTube channel and the links on my website, anayagai.com. This weekend's tours the recordings will be scheduled shortly. I promise. So earlier this week, and the two ways you can support me, and your tips matter a lot. So it could either be a PayPal donation or you could buy me a coffee. I would appreciate that. And I will see you on Tuesday for the Hachapuri cooking workshop in the local family, and also some surprise dish. With me and my colleague Dalia. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so worried and excited all at the same time about Tuesday. I hope everything works out. It's going to be fun anyway, probably messy. I'll definitely going to mess up with the khachapuri. I know that already, but I'm excited anyway for, well, whatever happens. Thank you so much. I will see you on Tuesday. Bye bye.